glad to have everyone here. We got 17 people are still piling in, so give everybody a moment to get situated. We were going to have today Vincent Alonso. However, him and his wife are both sick with COVID.
All right. Got
We're
it.
gonna wait on that opportunity. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is one of the steps of wholesaling, the very first step. So I'm going to share my screen here. So everyone can see the deal funnel. Some people refer to it as the conveyor belt. You might have heard that term before in the Elephant Challenge. You can also call it a funnel. I come from a marketing background and everything is a funnel. So when anything comes into the funnel, there's different stages, and at each stage of the funnel, more and more people drop out, right? So in the initial part of this funnel, it's offers. Offers have to get into the funnel, and then a certain amount of those will want to negotiate. And of those that negotiate, a certain amount of those will actually sign a contract for the deal. And then of those signed contracts, only half of those will actually become a deal. And then finally, you get the payout. But of this entire process, you can break it down to 17 different steps in wholesaling. You know, the whole thing about an elephant challenge, why do we say elephant challenge? The idea is, well, how do you eat an elephant one step at a time? So we're going to cover the first of all those steps today, which is locating the deal. And as you learned in the Elephant Challenge, utilizing Privy as the tool to locate the deal. So in the first step, locating the deal, we're going to go through 4 sub-steps to accomplish that. Number 1, finding what I call flipper land, where are all the flippers active at. Number 2, the Privy filter, so that we can filter out things that are not deals and more readily locate where the deals are. And then number 3, panning for gold within the subset that pull up with the filter. And number 4, gathering listing information from a deal that we located within Privy, a presumed deal, something we hope to make into a deal. So that's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to flip over now to the actual Privy, so you can watch what I'm doing here. And before I get started, let me see here. Okay, no questions yet. Good, just started. But please feel free to enter any questions that you have as we move along. And I'll make sure to check the chat once in a while, so before we move to the next point to cover any questions you might have. All right, here we have Privy. I just opened up a fresh view of the dashboard, and you can see all the blue areas. That's where Privy has MLS data. I'm going to focus in on Indianapolis. Within Indianapolis, of course, anytime you get close in on any city, any metro, you're going to see a bunch of bubbles. And those bubbles will have a number. Bigger bubbles means there's more opportunities in that area. Come on, Privy. Sometimes when you're on Zoom, it tends to slow down here. Well, while we're waiting for that to load, what I'm actually going to do instead of waiting for it to load is flip over to the filter here. There's a filter button right here. I'm going to type into the filter exactly what I want to see on my initial screen. Remember, the first point is finding flipper land. So I want to find areas where fix and flips are happening. I know that by going to sold instead of active. So I'm going to turn off active, keep on sold, and I'm going to click on fix and flip. So this will show me that investor activity. My location, I'm going to set to Indianapolis. And I'm going to include surrounding area. So this is my first filter to try to find that flipper land. I'm not going to adjust anything else at this point. I'm going to run the search. And if Privy's not too slow, come on, Privy. Let me double check what's going on here. Well, Privy's being a little stubborn, so let me do this. I'm going to, oh, here we go. Finally pulled up. Okay, great. So this, going back to the filter we see is sold single family, Indianapolis, fix and flip. So it pulled up all the fix and flips that have happened in that area. Big bubbles are great areas for flipper land. You can see over here, there's a lot in this area of Indianapolis. I'm going to just zoom in a little bit more. It'll break the bubbles down again. There we go. So now we can see where the flips have happened. When you spot an active area that you might want to look for deals in, the next thing I like to do is circle, pencil in that area that I want to actually search in. I know that this area here is heavy for fix and flips. So I'm just going to do these major road crossings as a block off. And I want to search this area right here. Now that I've penciled out my flipper land, I'm going to go back to filters and switch from sold to active. Now I want to see the deals that are active, that are fix and flip deals, and you can set your ARV. So that first step was finding flipper land, penciling out the area. That's what we already accomplished. Now we're moving on to step 2, which is the Privy filter setup. So within the filter, there's several things that you may want to do to make sure that you get the right results. The first thing is just what we already did. Make sure you clicked on fix and flip. When you set the fix and flip and your ARV percent, that's going to give you a blue button in your results that will help you quickly find comparables. So this is important for finding those comps fast. So the percent of ARV, basically this filter will only show results that are at a certain percentage of after repair value. So typically on a fix and flip, you want it to be well below 70%, especially in the market we're in now. So 75 is the default. I like to turn it down. You might turn it down to 60, 65, depends on what you're looking for. If you turn it down too far, you're going to get a lot of gut and destroyed homes. So you want to be in a range where you can negotiate them down from where they're at. So we're just going to set it to 65 right now and see what sort of deals pop up at 65%. One of the other good ones is days on market. If you do freshly posted deals, listings, they're typically not going to be ready to negotiate. If they just listed it they're going to try to get as close to their list price as possible. So some people like to do 30, 45, 60 days. You can do 90. You can do near when it expires at 180 days. You might do 120, 150. It's really up to you as far as the results you're going to show are different based on your days on market. The longer the days on market, the more likely they'll be willing to negotiate lower. But at the same time, if you do longer on market, they've probably been hit up by other investors over and over. So they may not, that might be a sign that they're really not willing to work with you. There's different ways of doing this. I'm going to do it to 45. To me, that's a nice even number to be able to, what is going on here? There we go. To be able to find negotiable deals. The next filter is price. You got to know that what your market pricing is. So if you're in a city with a lot of high-end homes, or where the price of homes are higher, you're going to have to go higher on the price. Pardon me here. But for now, I'm going to set the price to go no higher than 300,000. Another filter that's good is price per square foot. I'm going to come back and hit the price per square foot, and I might even adjust this. If I don't know this market, I'm not sure right off the bat where my price per square foot should be, nor where my price is going to be. And then I'm going to run the search and just see what pops up. So here we have several deals that fit that search criteria. And if I was going to just look at some of these deals over here on the right, I can kind of get a good idea just from looking at it if it's been fixed up already or not. You can tell if it has curb appeal, if it looks clean and painted and well groomed. This one here does not look well groomed. I'm going to presume this one is not a fix and flip. So if I click on it, and then I can see here, there's no pictures. If it was fixed to be flipped, rehabbed, there would be a lot of pictures. No one's going to put that much time and effort into an investment fix and flip and not do a number of pictures and show off their good work. So that right there tells me that this is a potential fix and flip deal. When I scroll down, I can very quickly see the blue button here, which is the presumed comps for this property. And this property is at $56 a square foot. The competition, or the ones that I'm looking at as potentially comps, I should say, not competition, are at 92 and 141. If I want to check the sold in this area, just to see where they're coming at, I see 70 and 81, but they're probably not fixed properties. The ones that are fixed are 142 and 92. If I go to all activity, just to get a better feel of everything in that territory, and go to sold, if there's a stack like this one, I know that the stacks are fix and flips. So this, it may not be a comp due to size, bedrooms, or some other factor that Privy is saying this is not necessarily a comp, but I do know that if I look at the dollars per square foot, I'm coming in 120, 201, 267, 199. So I'm going to be somewhere around $200 per square foot for a fixed and flipped property. So heading back over to my filter, that exercise is basically right there to help me set up my filter. If I go to filter now, I can say, give me properties that have I don't want a price per square foot any higher than $150 per square foot. Because if I'm getting too close to that $200 mark, then there's no real profit in that area, in that house for me to do anything with. So I'm going to go ahead and run this search again. And now it's filtered out anything that's more than $150 per square foot. That gives me a better idea of, all these properties are much more likely to be a deal than without setting your filters up at all. So that's the second step, is setting up the Privy filters. So now you have a limited list that you can glance through and try to find a good deal out of it. That was the second point. The third point now is panning for gold. So we have this small list of properties that we can look through and try to find gold. Before we move on, let me check for questions. People from all over, that's cool. Welcome, welcome. What fixed it? George says, what made the bubbles appear suddenly, or was it just a glitch that fixed itself? Yeah, it's just slow. It depends on how many people are using Privy, as well as the internet connection. If there's a lot of people using Privy, the Privy server is slow. Sometimes it takes a while to come in. It could be related to us being on Zoom, but it's usually faster than that, even when I'm on Zoom. So I have a feeling it's the Privy server. How do you know how much to set as a max dollar per square foot? So George, I'm not sure if that was answered for you. I went in a minute ago and checked out the dollar per square foot on some other properties. You can unmute yourself, George. Did that answer your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can again for you.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. Yeah. So I guess I missed that. Basically, the way that you found it was looking at an average of the properties. Yeah, it'll be great for me to see again how you got that number.
Sure, no problem at all. So I'm going to go back to the filter.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not the filter. I'm going to go back to a property that looks like a potential fix and flip, such as this one that we looked at a moment ago.
Okay.
Now, this one, $56 a square foot.
Okay.
So I know that, in practically any market, you're going to get more than $56 a square foot after you fix and flip it. It usually takes $40 a square foot just to fix it, right? So your after repair value is definitely going to be a lot more than 50 or 60. So you can look at the other properties to see where they're landing. The blue button here, that tells you what Privy thinks is a comparable for after repair value. They aren't necessarily fix and flipped, but Privy's guessing that they're repairable. In this case, I see 141 and 92. Those aren't really good numbers. I mean, typically I would be looking at something better than that when you're dealing with a fix and flip in most markets. Every market's different. I don't really know Indianapolis because I don't invest there. But if I was to go over and look at the property right now, that 92 is super low to me. I'm going to guess that is not a fix and flip. And sure enough, I look at this, there's no other pictures. So that 92 doesn't mean ARV, so I want to find properties that are below a certain point that can be fixed and flipped. 92 is definitely below that point. 56 is below that point. If I look at this property of 141, again, that's not fixed and flipped. There's potential there. How good is the property? I don't know. I'd have to investigate it a little bit more. There's no pics. I might find more pics online, but the 141 is not a fix and flip either. So that still might be a decent opportunity. If I go to sold, they're all low priced. There are no fix and flips in this particular search. So Privy tried to filter out for us what it thought were comps, but
Yep.
none of the actual comps ended up being fix and flipped. So what I'm going to do, and I didn't even look at these two others. I only looked at the blue. I see automatically 70 and 81. I know those are not fix and flips. So I'm going to do all activity to try to find where the fix and flip dollar per square foot is coming in at. And that gives me an idea of this neighborhood. So I know, is this neighborhood a high-end neighborhood, a low-end neighborhood? What's the dollar per square foot for fix and flip in this neighborhood? I can see when they're stacked like this, that means that it's Privy sees that as a fixed and flipped property because it's stacked. This one's at 176. So if I go over and I look at that property, so it looks clean. So it does look like they did, a fix and flip on this property. Honestly, that dollar amount, 176, looks kind of low to me, but that's where it sold for. But that was back in April. If I look at other properties, this was 156. That's super low. 201. This is 120, really low. 200, 171, 151. If I was to sort dollar per square foot, I know all the low stuff are not fixed and flipped. And then if I go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, I see deals that are like 277 is a fix and flip, 250, 200, so I would pick a number that seemed kind of like in the middle of all these as, I'm not calling this the ARV yet. That's not what I'm doing at this moment. I'm just trying to establish what number to put in the filter. So when I see all these numbers, I see about in the middle is $200. A $200 deal is probably not, it doesn't need enough repair to actually make it worthwhile to look at. So I want my filter to be well below that $200 mark, which is about in the middle of this whole thing. So if I go to filters now, close this out, go back to filters. I want this dollar per square foot to be well below the $200 mark. Because if it's $200, it's probably not a deal. If it's $200 per square foot. So I want my filter to go below that to filter out the stuff that's already in too good of a shape. Does that make sense, George?
Got it. That's helpful. And the ones that were at the top where the dollar per square foot was very low, that aren't deals, they might potentially have gotten renovated, right? And create a lot of equity. And we just wouldn't know because they haven't sold it again. So it's not a fix and flip, but it could still have been fixed.
George, can you repeat your question? I didn't quite follow.
Sure. So, when we saw the list there of all the properties with the dollar value per square foot, and at the top, there were the ones where the dollar value was low. Like, you have the ones that are at 49, 50, and so on. These, we know they're not fix and flips because they haven't gotten flipped, but it might be that they got renovated and that the equity in those homes rose, right? So they could become fix and flips. Is that right?
Yeah. It may have been a fix and flipper bought this at a low dollar and they're in the process of fixing it. They might be in the middle of a renovation on it.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. If I just look at this $49 one, I know it's not a fix and flip. At least I should say it's not fixed already at that 49 price. And you can see that by looking at it. Did an investor buy this thing to fix and flip it? Very well could be. If I go look at the public records just to check it out for the fun of it. Let's see here. property history. The buyer, a lot of times you'll see an LLC here. In this case, it wasn't. It was a person, but still, they may have bought it to fix and flip it. It's hard to tell, but judging from the price tag, it could very well have been a fix and flipper.
I have a question.
Sure, cool.
Well, anyway, let me go back to the questions here.
Okay,
and
sorry.
Make sure if anybody else had a question before we move on. Where can I find these recordings? Liliana, I posted recordings in the in Discord and the Facebook group, the Creative Finance with Pace Morby Facebook group. So all the recordings are there. Just do a search for Deal or No Deal and you'll find it. All right. So we're going to move on to the next point now, number 3, which is panning for gold. So you have all this here. Not all of these are going to be properties that you want to pursue. Some of them are probably in too good of a shape, and there's just no, it doesn't make sense as a fix and flip. Others might make sense, but the price is too high. You want to kind of pick the one that seems like the best fit for your buyers. So you always want to start with the buyers and think like a buyer. If you have buyers on your list, that's who you're looking for. If not, you might be JVing with somebody who has buyers or on a team that has both the acquisition side and the buyer side. As a property finder, you would be on the acquisition side and you're searching specifically for the buyers in the list. So in this case, if I was to look at this property, it looks in really good shape. There was a price drop. I'm just going to click on it for the fun of it. It's been listed for 51 days. That doesn't sound like a fix and flip because nobody wants to list a property for 51 days if it's a fix and flip, because they've got hard money on the line and they're losing money every day. So just looking at this property, yeah, it looks like it's a homeowner. The house is in pretty decent shape. It's not in bad shape. It doesn't look staged like a typical fix and flip property. It's in pretty good shape. So what you could do on this property is what they call a wholetail. So a wholetail is where it doesn't need a lot of work. Maybe it needs something to get it into, ready for an actual, there's some reason why buyers are not going for this property. It could simply be staging. It could be a yard curb appeal. If I go back to the curb.
Well, if my wife is any indication, it's that daggone kitchen, because that kitchen is horrible.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm sure your wife knows what she's talking about.
Well, every house that we've ever sold, if we renovated the kitchen and the bathrooms, it always sold quickly. But otherwise it was just kitchen was always huge.
Yeah. Well, this is at 107, which there's still, presumably room at 107 to work with it. So, it might be the kitchen. The house doesn't look in that bad a shape. Maybe it's that along with the staging. It looks like you could trim some bushes and do a little bit more curb appeal there, but the staging definitely could use a little bit of work. So the idea of a wholetail is you do very minimal work to it, and then you list it again. So you basically pick it up, and you might even negotiate with them to be able to do that work ahead of time, novation agreement, and then list it after you put your work into it. These can be challenging to find a good wholesale flip. Cabinets, looks like you could do a paint job on cabinetry, paint job on the wall. So once you get beyond, I like to break it into 5 categories. Lipstick is more like a wholesale job. You're doing curb appeal, you're doing very minor things, staging, just kind of, not putting too much money at all into it, and then listing it after that. After lipstick is cosmetic. With cosmetic, you might be doing flooring, painting inside, maybe painting outside, but not too much work into it. You're not doing countertops, you're not doing appliances. After cosmetic, you go to a basic rehab. And a basic rehab is what the vast majority are looking for, because those are harder to unload off of the MLS. And they're definitely, the buyers are not interested in them as they are. Retail buyers are not. And there's a little bit more profit in them typically. So that's something that, I like to look for is a basic rehab property. But this one could be, a simple cosmetic or lipstick perhaps. But that's what you can look at to see what is in this deal. In this case, they had a price drop. So that's another thing you can look for that tells you this might be a deal. It's been on the market for 51 days. So if it's on the market for nearly 2 months and it had a price drop, it could potentially be something where they're willing to negotiate. And that's what you're looking for is, are they willing to negotiate? There's signs that can tell you that. Does it fit the buy box of the buyer? So if your buyer list is looking for this condition of property, this size, 3.2, this is a 3.2, which is a very typical size that buyers are looking for. This could be a potential deal for your buyer. You just have to negotiate down. With 51 days on the market, they're not going to want to pick it up at 210,000. So you'll have to negotiate below that. Otherwise, they could have just found it themselves. So, you want to get maybe 30,000 below so that you can offer them a deal, at least 30,000. So, if you negotiate it down to 180, then you get your 15K off of it and they get a 15K discount off of the list. That might be a potential deal. So right now we're at 107 per square foot. That would drop it down even lower. This shows one potential comp in that area at 189 per square foot. That's, this is a potential deal here. So if you look at other properties, this one here, I see active 55 days. It looks fairly clean from the front, but definitely could be done better. I can see this thing sideways. That doesn't look right. The bushes are overgrown. So that tells me that there's some work here that could be done. So if you're looking for cosmetic or lipstick, wholesale type properties, these two could be potentials. If I go down further, this one looks in more rough shape than this one. That one might be, the type of deal that's a basic rehab. So you can kind of get a feel just glancing at the pictures if they fit the buyer's box. Once you get an idea of what might fit the buyer's box, let's just go for this one. It says 0 bath, 3.0, but there's no way it's a 0 bath. Nobody makes a 0 bath. So the data is just wrong on it. But you can see here, it's a 2,000 square foot house. There's a lot of room in there, and it's got a basement. The data is not always accurate. So if you really want to know for certain if this is right, you got to do a little bit more deeper research on this property than what it shows right here. Sometimes if you Google that property, I'm going to go click on Zillow, or actually Google, and see what else is out there, what it tells me. So this one says, this is Zillow, and it's saying a 2,100 square foot property with 4 bedrooms, 1 bath. Redfin it says 5-bedroom, 1 bath. So as you can see, we've already got several variations. This one says 2100, this one says 2100, but this says 4-bedroom, this says 5-bedroom. This one here says 4-bedroom, 1 bath. So, you know, it will have to call the agent to really get the details. But again, 2112, that might be what it actually is. Instead of the 1946, it might be a 4-1. It might be a 5-1. 2,100 square feet is plenty of room. With a 1-bedroom, I'm sorry, a 1 bath for that size of property, you're probably looking at adding another bath. So that's something you look at when you're comping it out to see how much repairs they're going to put into this thing. Nobody's going to want a 2,100 square foot house with only 1 bath. So those are the sort of things you look at ahead of time before you call the agent. You know the data is wrong here. You can talk to the agent and try to figure out, just tell them, yeah, I looked at Zillow and it told me one thing, Redfin told me another. Can you fill me in a little bit more on what this property is, you know, the details on it. You typically have listing information here. It doesn't have it, probably just due to the MLS that they're working on. So every MLS is different. So Privy has access to some information on some MLSs and others on other. If it's not showing the description, it could simply be that it's in one of those MLSs that it doesn't have rights to that. If I click on Redfin, oh, it's saying off market. Interesting. Last sold. Let me back up and go to Zillow. It's saying off market too. Well, that's interesting. So this is off market. I clicked on an off market. So that's probably why it's saying it's not giving me accurate data. This says this property is active. Sometimes it's just the data is inaccurate. So it's probably off market simply because Zillow and Redfin both say that it's off market, even though Privy says that it is. You'll run across that. But it's usually fairly accurate as far as telling you if it's on market or off market. When I did the filter, I set up the filter over here for active. If you do status active, that's supposed to be on market properties. But in this case, it looks like there's something going on with the data that's just not correct. I'm going to pretend, I don't know for certain at this point if this is actually on market or not, but for the sake of this exercise, I'm just going to pretend like it is on market. Well, here's another element. So typically up here, it has the agent information, and then also at the bottom, it has agent information. So I'm actually going to pick a different property because of that. I'm going to go back to up to the top one here. All right, here it says MLS data. We have actual agent information. So this one is definitely going to be a better opportunity for an on-market opportunity. So now that we narrow down what we're looking at, we'll go ahead and move forward with this property instead of the last one. So this is, the one we looked at a minute ago when Ravi's wife says the kitchen is horrible. And Ravi's wife is probably right. This is not a full gut job for certain. It's not, I wouldn't even call it a basic rehab. Even though the kitchen needs some work, you could probably do this a lot cheaper than a basic rehab. Because overall, it's in pretty decent shape. You could do some paint work. I would probably call this maybe a cosmetic. I guess it would depend on how much they wanted to redo this kitchen. Is it worth going to a full kitchen redo? You might be able to redo it a lot cheaper using the same cabinetry, maybe the same granite. You might want to replace the granite and with something prettier than that, something more updated, replace the backsplash, a nicer appliance. So you might sink into this something in between a cosmetic and a full or a basic rehab. Usually cosmetics, I don't know this market, Indianapolis, but you might look at that at $20 a square foot to fix it up versus a full rehab would be 40, a basic rehab, I mean. So you might go $30 a square foot or something like that for a quick analysis. The idea here is trying to get a feel of what needs done, how much it's going to cost. Does it fit your buyer's buy box, what they're looking for? So this could potentially fit that buy box. That's point number 3. Before we move on to the last point, which is point 4, let me see if there's any more questions here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Any more questions on point 3? Which point 3 was panning for gold, finding a good property that fits the buy box before we move to point 4. Okay, great. So the 4th point in locating a deal is gathering the listing information. So we did look at the images already. That's part of the listing information. A big part of it is just going through the images and seeing what needs done. Is there any talking points from these images that we need to speak to the agent about when we call the agent? You want to get a feel of the property before you actually pick up the phone and call the agent. It might be that you notice stains on the ceiling or water damage or mold or crack in foundation. In your exterior pics, you might notice, okay, here's a basement. You might notice something in the basement you want to talk about, like does it get flooded, or other points that you need to talk to them about. Sometimes there might be right-of-way issues with driveway. Just gather all your intel, all your questions from the images that you want to ask the agent. I will, because of the issues of database, I'll typically go and do a quick Google just to see if it matches up. So this one here in Privy, it says it's a 3.2, 1,960 square feet. And does it say the basement? Yeah, it doesn't even say the basement square feet. We know there's a basement. We saw it in the pics. Over here, I see in Zillow, it says 3.2, 2,800 square feet. This one says 3.2, 2,800 square feet. So going back over here, it's a 1960. So 2,800 is probably including the basement, which is not accurate. You don't count the basement in square feet. So, but that's something you'd want to ask the agent about. You say you're seeing in Zillow and other places 2,800 square feet, but what is the real square foot? Is that include basement or not? Is that actual livable square foot? So just gather that intel. Right here you have property remarks. You want to see anything in here that might be a question mark that you want to ask them about. Sometimes it might say something about an additional unit, about parking, about condition of the house, things working, not working. Any question marks here that you can pull out of this that you want to talk to them about, that's the homework that you do right here. This one seems like, from just glancing through here, that everything is a sell, sell, sell. It's all good. However, it's been listed for 51 days and had a price drop. I'm going to go now as another talking point before I call the agent. I'm going to go look at the property history, and I see that there were several changes. So it was purchased in July, and then it was listed in September, and then it changed. So it was listed for 229, 230, and then it dropped to 220, and then it dropped to 210. So that gives me an idea that they've been dropping it about once a month to try to get it sold. The previous transaction was in 2010. So they held it for 12 years, more than likely a homeowner, not any form of investor that bought it. It could have been a rental property, but based off of a Molly Baker, it was probably a homeowner that purchased it. But I see multiple price drops. It's been in the market for a month and a half, going on 2 months. So you can just talk to the agent and, find out why it's not selling. What's the feedback from the buyers? Is it the kitchen? Is it something else? How willing is the seller to negotiate? So, you're gathering intel at this point to be able to pick up the phone and call the agent. So that's basically the 4 subpoints of the first step of making a deal happen, which is locating a deal. So again, let me stop the share here. Those 4 steps in review so that we don't forget: finding the flipper land, penciling out the area where fix and flips are happening, Privy filter setup, getting your filter so that it weeds out a lot of the trash and only shows you what more you're looking, type of houses that are similar to what you're looking for. Panning for gold, looking through the listings on the side to try to find one that matches the buy box of your buyer, and then gathering the listing information in preparation for your phone call. So that's what the first step is, and that's what the training is about today. Any questions, any comments? I'd like to hear what you guys feel about this first step. Does that seem like something you can reach out and accomplish?
Actually, if I'd had this information a week ago, I'd be further ahead down the road.
I'm glad it helps. A lot of times there's so much involved. If you just take one little piece and make it into a systematic approach, then you can tackle it.
Yes.
I like to break things down into systematic approach, so it's much more handleable. Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate that feedback. Okay, guys. Before we go, I'd like to give you a link for our team. So we have a team that we built that does Privy fix and flip wholesaling. So we were in 3 markets right now. We're doing Jacksonville, Atlanta, and Dallas. So property finders are, the newer ones. I'm going to show you again this chart real quick. So the property finders do this first stage of the process. And so we have about 50 property finders right now. Right here, the next stage are acquisition managers. So each acquisition manager has their group of property finders that they manage and help train up, mentor to get them to the next level. And then the next set are, here's the combination of people. You have a transaction coordinator that makes sure that all of the funding, going back and forth with the title company or escrow company, as well as the contract, the paperwork, that's the transaction coordinator. But the dispo manager is responsible for finding a buyer and making that deal happen, closing the deal with the buyer. And then there's you got the gator funder or transactional lender. They put the EMD down, the money, and then they get a paycheck out of that. So we have different people for different roles in our company to make sure each and every one of these steps are accomplished. if that's something that interests you, if you'd like to work on a team, our team is basically built to help newbies get into a system that they can systematically start making offers, and they don't have to worry about all the other steps. There's somebody else that will be able to negotiate it and close it. And there's also a growth path. So they can go from being a property finder to being an acquisition manager, to being a dispo manager, to being a team manager. So I'm going to put into the chat here how you can find out more information and join our team if that's something that that interests you. So you can go to that link and you can watch a replay to understand what we're about. And if you, if there's also, you can do the introductory meeting live, which we do every week. And that's something that you want to do. You can sign up and you know, you basically fill out a form and let us know your availability as well as your experience, and commit to working with us, and we'll send you a JV agreement. And you know, if it works for you, if this is something right for you, that'd be great. There's a lot of different elephant leaders out there. Everyone has their own system. And I'll tell you, every single one of the elephant leaders that I've talked to are really good people. So maybe this is the system for you. If you want to work one-on-one with somebody else, there's plenty of people as well that you can work one-on-one with. So, you know, what we want is for each and every one of you to find a good fit for you, for what works for you. Maybe my team is a good fit for you, or maybe another team. Either way, we just want the best for you. We want something, we want you guys to be able to get rolling, you know, make offers, make deals happen, and stay in the REI business. Don't drop out because it feels too complicated for you. All right, guys, we appreciate you coming, and hope you have a nice evening. Hope this helped you out, and look forward to having you on next week. We do this every week, same time, same place, deal or no deal. So have a great evening, everyone.